Good morning, brothers, and welcome to our Saturday morning devotion. I pray that you're all doing well. I pray that your families are doing well. I miss you guys. I love you guys. You guys are in my prayers. And I look forward to the time that we're able to get back together and fellowship and spend time in God's Word. And so until that time, we'll continue to utilize our online platforms, our Facebook page, and just know that I love you guys and think about you guys. During this time, you guys, as we've been in quarantine and being able to spend more time at home, for me, I believe that God allowed this to happen, to spend more time with my family, spend more time with my kids, more time in prayer, more time in God's Word, and more time in examining myself. I want to be more as we come back. I'm excited that we come back, because I want to bring more freshness to our men's ministry. I want to bring more vision to our men's ministry. And that starts within myself. And so I've been taking a good long look at myself, and in those areas where I need to rebuild, areas where I need to fix, and with the Lord's help. And so I was going through chapter 3 in Nehemiah, and I found it interesting that as Nehemiah in chapters 1 and 2 has now put the vision and the burden that was laid on his heart to rebuild the city of Jerusalem, to rebuild the walls, we see at the end of chapter 2 that Nehemiah surrounds himself with men that would carry out his vision. And I kind of see that with our men's ministry, that casting the vision and freshness of what Pastor David's vision is, and getting vision from the Lord, and putting that to the men. And one of the things that I see for us men is to become stronger men of God, men that will lead our homes, men that would be leaders in our church, men that are leaders in our workplace and in our community, and leaders and men that will raise the arms of our pastor. And so as I was reading chapter 3, a couple of things stuck out to me. We see that in chapter 3 that now Nehemiah's vision in rebuilding the city, rebuilding the walls, is now put into work. And you'll see throughout chapter 3, these men that are now have caught the vision of Nehemiah, and they're now building. But we notice that there's 10 gates that are listed here. And I was thinking, wow, that's interesting that Nehemiah lists the 10 gates, or that 10 gates were being worked on. And I was thinking, what is the reason that there's so much rebuilding with the gates? And I started thinking to myself, well, gates can expose weakness. If the gates aren't built or rebuilt, any enemy that wants to attack the city will first attack the gates if the gates are weak. And I started thinking about that in my own life. Is the gate to my family, is it strong? Is the gate to my ministries, is it strong? Is the gate to my devotional life and prayer life with the Lord, is it strong? Or does it need rebuilding? And we see here in chapter 3 that there's 10 gates listed. You can go through them yourselves, but we see in verse 1, there's a sheep gate, and in verse 3, the fish gate. Verse 6, we see the old gate. Verse 13, the valley gate. Verse 14, the dung gate, or the refuse gate. Verse 15, the fountain gate. We see in verse 26, the water gate, and in verse 28, horse gate. And in verse 29, the east gate. And in verse 31, the mikvah gate, or the inspection gate. 10 gates are listed. And why is that? Why are gates so important? Because the gate in our lives, the gate into our ministry, the gate into our families has to be strong. When Jesus is speaking about in John chapter 10, talking about being the door to the gate, not allowing enemies to come in. And men, gates can reveal weak spots, and the enemy will concentrate on these structures. As these men were building, you will also see in chapter 3 that they were next to one another. These men joined up and examined the gates and rebuild them. And I want to encourage us men during this time that we examine the gates of our heart, the gates that lead into our families, the gates that lead into our spiritual lives. Let's rebuild those, because the enemy will come and he will look for weakness in the structures of our gate. And so, men, be encouraged as we see these men rising together and building, that we rebuild our gates, the gates that will keep the enemy out, the gates that will protect our families, protect our church, protect our spiritual life, protect our hearts and our minds. And so, men, let's concentrate on our gates of our lives, that we may rebuild during this time. I love you guys. Look forward again to when we meet. Join us Tuesday morning for our men's study at 6:30. Men, join us for our Saturday evening marriage and family series with Pastor David. Join us for our Sunday morning services at 8:30 and 10:45, and then a replay at 2 p.m. Hey, I love you guys. God bless you, and I'll talk to you soon.